Welcome. So that was me just messing around freestyling with 16th note bass drum and snare drum patterns while keeping time with eighth notes on the hi-hat. We're going to talk about that today. I'm going to explain that today. I'm going to get a little bit more in detail with you about that today. It's really kind of another step that we take when we learn how to play beats. We learn how to play We Will Rock You, right? In the beginning. And this is maybe some of our first. That may have been some of our first beats. A nice simple pattern, but we're keeping time. Then we might add the snare drum. I have some study material, some lessons that I've written up, and it talks about using the bass drum and the snare drum and then adding the hi-hat. And when we add the hi-hat, we add the hi-hat for time, or we add the ride cymbal for time, or sometimes we use the crash to keep time. Usually with eighth notes, sometimes with 16th notes, sometimes with quarter notes. But it's the steady time that we're keeping with one of these cymbals. You could also keep eighth note time on a floor tom, on the rim, something. But as long as it's a steady pulse. But before we get into all of that, I want to say good morning. It's Monday. Happy Monday. Here's what I've been thinking about. The musicians out there, doesn't matter what instrument you play, or the lovers of music who may one day want to become musicians. The people that maybe think to themselves, wow, I wish I could play an instrument. You know how many times I tell people that I'm a drum teacher, I'm a drummer, I'm a professional drummer, a professional musician, and they say to me, man, I wish I could play an instrument. I just have no musical talent. I hear that all the time. That may or may not be true. But if you love music, here's my question. What have you done? Or, since it's early in the day, what will you do today to further your musical life, to enhance your musical life? What will you do today? So, this goes out to everybody, except the people that don't like music, or claim not to like music, or don't listen to music in the car, or don't listen to music at all. I've heard some people say that. It doesn't make sense to me, but you know, to each their own. It's an individual choice. Music is such a huge part of my life. I cannot imagine not listening to music at some point every single day. But that's fine. So, to everybody out there who enjoys music or makes music, what will you do today to enhance your musical life? I have this thing that I say to my students when they come in after the week between lessons, and I say, what's going on in your musical world, right? Or what went on this week in your musical world? And basically what I'm asking them is, what have they done in music this week? The real question is, did you practice? Yes, but for me it's more than that, because the idea I'm trying to convey to my students is that if you've decided to make music, or make music a part of your life, or become a musician, um, you now have a musical life. And I like to kind of separate that a little bit and treat it as a thing, because everybody has a ton of stuff going on in our lives. You know, my students will have school and sports and relationships and family life, and pets and whatever else is going on. And then they have their music. You're coming to lessons each week for a reason, because you want music to be a part of your life, and you want to make music, and you want to become a musician. So, what did you do this week that is furthering that? So, I always like that as a question. And let me give you some examples. If we are listening to music, that's something that we can do. In the morning, I go and I make coffee. When the weather is nice, even when it's not, and I want a fresh burst of cold air like today, some fresh air, I open my side door that leads out to my deck and I start to make coffee. And I ask my AI assistant, who lives in my kitchen and in my bedroom, to play some sort of music. And I often go into the kitchen and I begin the process of making coffee. And I'm thinking to myself, what do I want to hear? It's never a question of do I want to listen to music? No, it's what do I want to hear right now? What music do I want to listen to? So that's the question for me. It's never a question of if, but what. So we can choose to listen to music. But beyond that, we can choose to listen to something different. We can choose to seek out a different artist, a different band, maybe check out a popular song. Maybe some song won an award. Um, as the case last night, uh, what was I made for? I think won an Oscar. But there's music all around us. So we can listen to a different artist, a different song. Um, we can listen to a different genre. We can go find a genre of music that we have not experienced yet or listened to yet, and we can try to find something different, expand what we listen to. I was talking on a previous show about the fact that I used to be a metalhead. It's metalhead or it's nothing, or it's metal music or it's nothing. And I've backed off of that a little bit. My love for metal is still strong as ever, and it is my favorite genre of music. But I've allowed myself to be open to all kinds of different music, and it kind of comes with the job. I mean, I've been teaching for 12 to 15 years, but my students bring me all kinds of new music, and I don't like all of it. But it's really important what they like. But some of it I find interesting, some of it I really like. So I've been open to different styles of music. So that's something you can do. Certainly, practicing your instrument is another thing that you can do to enhance your musical life. Um, if you're a drummer, maybe you could take a trip down to the music store and you can try out different drumsticks by different manufacturers, different sizes, different weights, different lengths, and experience the differences in the vast variety of drumsticks that you can use, that you can buy. Anything like that. Just explore different instruments. Go shopping online. Make a wish list of something that maybe you would want to add to your collection. I've always wanted a Tama Birch Babinga drum set. And although I've had amazing drum sets and have amazing drum sets right now, that's one that I've always wanted to get. And one day I'll get one. I was actually just watching a YouTube video of the Tama AR rep going to visit the drum tech of a famous drummer and changing out all the hardware on the entire Birch Babinga drum set from brushed nickel to chrome, which that's a dedicated AR guy. And that's another thing that brings me to another thing. Go online, look on YouTube, find something musical that interests you. Go look at an interview of your favorite artist. I love watching interviews of my favorite artists because the stories of how they got to where they got to, fascinating, fascinating. And it gives us all that kind of like hope. Wow, that person came from here and they made it to there and they were dedicated. They worked hard. They did everything they could to achieve their dream. And look at them. They've achieved their dream. So it's a really cool inspiration to go and watch interviews of your favorite artists. The other thing I love to watch is behind the scenes. I love watching an artist that I'm a fan of making a record. The behind the scenes studio footage is one of my favorite things because I've been in the studio many times and it's a really fun process. A couple of weeks ago I was in the studio recording drums. Super fun process, and I love to watch what happens when the big artists go into these amazing studios and record records. And then I like to see listen to the finished product as I'm watching, because sometimes they'll break it down song by song. This is how we wrote this song, this is how we recorded it. And then I'll go back and I'll listen to the finished product and I'll watch them working through the different parts, and it's pretty awesome. So go on YouTube, find a lesson of something, search for something you've always been curious about, do something to enhance your musical life. And don't forget that you have a musical life. Don't forget that it's a part of your life. It's a big part of your life, and we need to pay the attention to it that it deserves. Making music is a magical thing, and if that's what you want to do, then I commend you, support you, and I'm here to help, which is why I became a teacher, because I think music is super important, and I want to be a part of the process of helping younger people come up and not only discover a love of music, but to build on the skills that they need to make their own music. And it's really, I couldn't be happier with that. So with that, we're going to get into how we do eighth notes as a timekeeper, but how we use 16th notes on the bass drum and on the snare drum. Very good, by the way. Black Rifle Vanilla Coffee. Ugh, really, really good. Okay, there's your coffee review for today. We have, well, let's get to the weather. We have wind gust warnings in effect till like 11 o'clock tonight. So apparently it's going to be windy all damn day. It rained really hard on Saturday. It was windy and rainy yesterday here in the Northeast. It's been kind of weird weather, but this is what is it? March comes in like a lion, goes out like a lamb. Comes in like a lamb, goes out like a lion. Whatever it's doing, March it's doing its thing. What's up, Louis? Louis just joined us, and as soon as I start playing, oh, he's leaving. He saw what he needed to see. He's out of here. All right. So anyway, we're keeping time with eighth notes on the hi-hat or on the ride. And the count is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I'm going to be talking, so I'm going to keep the drums off for now. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now those are eighth notes. The one comes on the downbeat, the second eighth note is on the upbeat. So in other words, we have one note being played at the beginning of the beat, one note being played exactly in the middle of the beat, and then the next note we play is the beginning of the next beat, which would be the 2. And then after that, we're playing the note that falls exactly in the middle between 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But we have other notes. We have smaller notes that will occur in between the downbeat or the 1 and the and of that same beat. These are called 16th notes, and they are worth 1/4 of a beat each. So what happens is we have a smaller note. So now in one beat, we can fit 4 notes instead of just 2 for the eighth notes. So what we're going to do is we're going to play eighth notes on the hi-hat, but I'm going to play the corresponding, I'm going to play the in-between 16th notes on the bass drum. Okay. I'm not going to play the eighth notes, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the E's and the Uhs. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. So what happens is now I'm counting 16th notes, but I'm playing the ones and the ands on the hi-hat, the E's and the Uhs on the bass drum. And for those of you that aren't sure, we count 16th notes, 1 E and 2 E and right? So 1 E and that's 4 notes inside the 1 beat. 2 E and that's 4 notes inside the 2 beat, and so on and so forth. So again, smaller notes, we have to play them faster. That's why they happen faster. And if we just simply go back and forth between the hi-hat and the bass drum, I'm playing the eighth note on the hi-hat and I'm playing the in-between notes on the bass drum. Another great exercise would be to play all 16th notes on the bass drum while we're playing the eighth notes on the hi-hat. And that will go like this. I'll put the drums on. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and So we need to be comfortable with playing bass drum notes not on the hi-hat. When we learn and when I teach beginners and we start to work on rock beats, the eighth note rock beats, we're playing eighth notes, we're really playing quarter notes on the bass drum and the snare drum, but they're occurring with the hi-hat at the same time. So what you'll notice is every time I hit the bass drum, I'm hitting the hi-hat with it. And every time I'm hitting the snare drum, I'm hitting the hi-hat with it. Or what I'd really like to say is I'm keeping time with my hi-hat and occasionally adding a bass drum to one of the hi-hats and a snare drum to maybe a different one of the hi-hats that I'm playing. But when we're playing 16th note patterns with bass drum or snare drum, we're playing not only sometimes on the hi-hat, but in between the hi-hat notes. That's where it can get tricky and challenging. If we're so used to just connecting that bass drum to the hi-hat, connecting that snare drum to the hi-hat, then when we are challenged to play bass drums and snare drums in between the hi-hat, not on the hi-hat, it can get tricky. All right. So that's why we have to play it nice and slow. So again, I'll do bass drum on 16th notes and hi-hat on 8th notes, and you'll hear what I'm saying. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and same with the snare drum. We can do the same with the snare drum. These are good warm-up exercises and a good way to get ourselves comfortable with playing that bass drum while the hi-hat hand is in between hi-hats. Do it slow. Be patient. Do it slow. Take your time. It could take a little while to train our brains to do these patterns. So I'm going to do snare drum, hi-hat, same way. 16th notes on the snare drum, 8th notes on the hi-hat. One and two and no. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and you notice even though I'm counting 16th notes, the 1 in the and, the 2 in the and, the 3 in the and are still falling on the hi-hat. Okay, so that's why we can see that the 8th notes, the position of the 8th notes does not change, even though we're adding the 16th notes in between each 8th note. We're still playing the exact same thing, but we're just playing smaller notes. 1 and 2, 3, 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and okay. So now when we do that and we start to develop that ability to play these different notes at the same time and different size notes and different patterns at the same time, we're starting to build independence. When we're playing bass drum, snare drum on the hi-hat, we're building a dependence between the bass drum and the hi-hat. And that's fine when we're starting out. But then we have to start kind of pulling that apart a little bit and adding to it and enhancing it. So we're not just able to play bass drum with the hi-hat, but we're able to play the in-between parts. And then as we move further down the road, we can really start to experiment with different patterns, different rhythms for each one of our limbs at the same time. So we can achieve four-way independence and really be able to do some really cool sounding stuff by ourselves. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to start to continue, right? We always want to keep the 8th notes on the hi-hat or on the ride cymbal, keeping time. But we want to experiment with different patterns on the bass drum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the 1 E on the bass drum, the first 2 16th notes in the beat, and the and on the snare drum, the second 2 16th notes in the beat, while keeping 8th notes on the hi-hat. Okay, ready, Louis? All right, here we go. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and so this is the fun part, because once you understand the 16th notes and how they fit in, we can start to play around with resting some of those 16th notes, or what they call broken 16th notes, where instead of all 4 16th notes being played in a beat, we can rest 1 or 2 of them in different positions and come up with different rhythms. So what I'm going to do on the bass drum as an example of that is, let me see, what should I do? I'm going to rest the E, which is the second 16th note, second position 16th note. I'm going to rest that. I'm going to play all the other 16th notes on the bass drum while keeping 8th note time with my hi-hat. And that's going to sound like this. One E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... That's not what I did at all. I rested the end. Sorry about that. Let's try it again. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... Okay, so you could do that too. The first thing I did, resting the ands, right? Or let's rest the downbeats. Let's rest the 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... So we have no bass drum on the 1, 2, 3, or 4, but all the other 16th notes we're playing on that bass drum. So it's giving us a chance to play the notes that do correspond with the hi-hat and the notes that do not, that occur in between the hi-hats. Once we start to get comfortable with that, we can play some really, really cool beats. We can get into more funk type of drumming, which does lean more heavily into the 16th note bass drum and snare drum patterns, because the extra notes, the smaller subdivision of notes, can lend itself to a more bouncy sound, a more funky, a more groovy sound than the straight 4/4 rock time, where we're just stuck in the bass drum on the 1 and 3, snare drum on the 2 and 4 type of pattern. So that's it for today. I hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Contact me directly at MarkZDrums.com. Head over to my Patreon. It's free. Check out, poke around, see if you like it. Patreon.com, MarkZDrums. All of my platforms, MarkZDrums. Have a great day, and I'll see you on Wednesday. And YouTube, thank you for watching. Thank you to all the new subscribers. Thanks for jumping on, and I will see you on Wednesday with another episode of the MarkZ Drumcast.